Okay. I hope that there isn't any echo. I don't hear any on my end. So, welcome to the SEDS workshop Pitching for Young Professionals, the art of making a good first impression. My name is Sara Alvarado. I'm the executive director for Students for the Exploration and Development of Space. And I'll kick things off by covering the basics, and then I'll give you a few minutes to digest everything I just explained. And then we'll work on the actual workshop part of this, which is learning the skills and developing what your pitch will be. There we go. So SEDS is the world's largest nonprofit organization that is entirely student-led, except for myself. I recently graduated. Our mission is to cultivate space education by providing our members with technical, professional, and personal development. And I'm the executive director for the US branch, but we are all over the world, including Europe, Canada, Africa, South America, Central America. Still not in Oceania, but that's our goal for this upcoming year. And I encourage you, if you're currently a university student, to go on our website to see if your university has a such chapter. If not, you can create your own. And we also have a few high school chapters. So think about that for those younger students here. Okay, so our goal with this workshop is to help you build the confidence to develop that right attitude so that when you go into professional network settings, which is truly where a lot of the benefit comes out of, and where you build a lot of um, the key connections that help you grow your career, that's where they take place. Okay, so as I mentioned, it's about having the right confidence. And for many people, when they're going to their first conference or their first networking event, they truly don't know what to expect. They might not be prepared. So this is it. This is how you get prepared to, build that confidence. Unfortunately, it's not something you can just turn on, but with the right body language and the right prep, you can truly fake it till you make it. So you can certainly follow along, whether you're standing or sitting. First, let's work on your posture. So wherever you are, stand up straight or sit up straight like a string is pulling you up, and then relax your shoulders back and tilt your head just a little bit up. Good. This is the posture you want to maintain when you're in these sort of interactions. You want to maintain eye contact. And when you walk into a room, check in with yourself, maybe even before walking into the room. Prepare your posture and then walk in. You want to make sure that from the very beginning to the very end, you're maintaining that assertive body language. So you walk into a room, now what? Scope out the area. Look for different groups. So you in a network setting, you're going to see individuals off to the corner by themselves. If you're very nervous and don't know where to start, they're usually very open to talk because they generally are just as nervous as you. If you've done your homework and you have a list of people that you absolutely want to talk to at this event, and you see that person, whether it be in a group, then if the group is small or sorry, closed off, then what you're going to look for is that person within that group that is looking around, maybe not as engaged with the conversation. Talk to them and they will be your into that group. And that way you can make that connection. However, the closed off groups are harder to break into. So I recommend, if you're not seeing, the single person off by the wall by themselves, then look for groups that are open. Those are much easier to interact with. The next thing I'll cover is your tone. At these conferences, especially when you're a student, you get to meet some of your heroes. And it's so easy to get super excited. But keep in mind that you can absolutely be passionate, but keep it professional. So if at any point you feel like you start talking really quickly, it's hard for you to catch your words, slow down, breathe. Think of your tone as a way to guide the interaction, because through your tone, you can calm yourself down and you can calm down the people that you're talking with. All right. Okay, so what do you say? Well, I've broken it up into 4 easy steps. Now, keep in mind that these aren't always linear. Sometimes the second and the third step merge, or sometimes they switch positions. Just be mindful of the situation. So, for example, if you're going to a networking event, then you can expect your conversations to be much longer. People are there to connect and to speak. If you're at a conference and the person you're trying to talk to is a speaker who just got off stage and they're running to their next panel, be mindful that you can't approach them and start, rambling on. Think about their time, and instead of thinking there's this monologue that I have to get out, focus on what that objective is. So if the objective is making sure you establish that connection quickly and getting that business card so you can connect with them over email or LinkedIn, and establishing that connection better down the line, then that's definitely okay. And they would very much appreciate it. All right, so for the introduction, you can absolutely keep it simple. Name, what you do, and tell me about yourself. Or why are you at this conference? So for example, hi, I'm Sarah. I'm with Students for the Exploration and Development of Space. What brought you to this conference? Simple, easy, you don't have to overthink it. And then moving on to passion, once you start, establishing this conversation with this individual, really become extremely curious as to who they are and why they're here. So learn about, what makes them tick, what's their background, and really think about how you can connect with this individual. Maybe you went to the same university, or maybe you're both interested in an upcoming panel. Whatever it takes, here's where in this passion segment is where you're trying to gather this intel on who they are, so that when you move on to the value phase, you can use that information to figure out what is the best way that you can both be mutually beneficial to each other. So maybe they are a professor at a university you're interested in attending, so you can ask them to connect you with other professors that are in the field. And then at the same time, maybe if they're a professor, then you can connect them with students that that are interested in their research. So it should definitely be a relationship that gives both ways. If not, if all you're doing is talking to them to figure out how you can get something out of them, then that person is going to feel used. You're not actually going to be developing a connection, and it's going to end up sounding more like a sales pitch. So this is talking about telling your unique story, being 100% authentic. You're not trying to sell anything. You're just talking about yourself. So you automatically have an advantage. And lastly is the call to action. So you've figured out how you can each help each other out. And now you make that, okay, here's my ask. Generally, that ask is, can I have your business card? Or let's switch business cards. or can I connect with you over LinkedIn? Whatever it is, it should focus on the next steps to further grow that relationship. All right. Great. So just giving you a bunch of information. I'll give you 2 to 3 minutes to think about what are your values so that when you're talking to these individuals, you have a few bullet points in your mind that you can really lean on. What skills come naturally to you? What are skills that no matter what you're doing or what setting you're in, you're just really good at? For example, you can, no matter where you're at, you might be really good at reading a room, or you might be good at helping other people stay calm. That's great. It might not mean that your math is amazing, but being able to pacify a dangerous situation is an extremely good skill to have and extremely transferable. And then think about what your goal is or your goals are for attending this summit. So I'll give you a few minutes there, and then we'll move on to the workshop, real-time practice. I'll set a timer for 3 minutes. All right, 20 seconds left. Okay. All right, so generally I do this with other leads in the workstation, so I'll just be doing all of these. Let's start with station one, and just to make sure I don't take up too much time, I'll be timing myself. Let's do 7 minutes. Okay, so I covered body language at the very beginning. Make sure you stand up straight, that your shoulders are back, that your head's tilted just a little bit forward. Sometimes when we're in professional settings or around people that we don't know, one of the things that pops up to our mind a lot is, what do we do with our hands? That's definitely happened to me. And it's really fine to just leave them by your side. Things to avoid are to close off your hands like this. That easily starts making you slouch and compromises your posture. So if you're gonna do that, just be mindful of that. But if not, keep your hands at your sides. Also, holding your hands in a closed position in front of you also starts compromising your posture if you're not paying attention to it. So just try to keep that open stance. And the other important thing to keep in mind here is handshakes. So it's hard for us to practice handshakes virtually, but I encourage you to shake your own hand just to practice. For me, my dominating hand is my right one. When you shake someone's hand, what you want to avoid is I think it's called like the floppy fish, which is when you just grab the fingers of the person you're shaking hands with. Don't do that. It makes the other individual think that there's either that you've maybe have never learned how to shake hands, which is weird, or you don't want to shake their hand, which is off-putting. So whenever you do, you want this part of your hand to touch that part of their hand. It has to go all the way down, and grip and shake 1, 2, maybe 3, but avoid holding on to just the fingers, or avoid grabbing their hand, but then just kind of laying it hang there. So I encourage you to practice that by yourself, practice with your friends, your family. It's good to have it down ahead of meeting individuals so that it's muscle memory by that point. Okay, and then the last part regarding station one is, what do you say? I mentioned that the first thing you want to talk about is a very basic introduction. So I see that there's 3 people here. I don't know if all 3 have been with us the entire time, but the introduction, it should be very easy. It should be your name, who you are or what you do, followed by bringing it back to their side. So why are you at this conference? So I'll start first and then we can go around the room. Hi, my name is Sara Alvarado. I'm with a student-led nonprofit doing cool things in space, and I'm really excited to be here. What brings you to this conference? Easy peasy. All right, I'm going to call on Yara. Is that correct?
Yes,
You want
perfect.
to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Yara. I'm from Miami, Florida, and I help out with the Brazilian space industry. I am at this conference because I'm curious about all the trends in space education, since that's building our future. Yeah, what are you at this conference for?
Nice. I love that. Awesome. Like, very interesting background. So you give a lot of golden nuggets there to carry the conversation forward. I really like that. Okay. Uzair, do you want to go next? No? All right. What about Melissa? Do you want to introduce yourself? Okay. That's all right. You got a couple of shy people, and that's totally fine, as long as you practice with friends and family. Okay, so let's move on to the next one, which is business card know-how and building a network. So creating a business card, I know for the younger generation, they might look at that and be like, oh, that's so old. And even for the older generation, some of them don't use the business card anymore. Oh, okay. Thanks for the heads up, Melissa. So no matter what, I recommend that you have, if you're going to a conference, whether it's a student conference or a professional conference, I highly recommend you get a business card. If it will truly make you look very professional, and you can really create one on the spot. I will show you mine. So something key, that's what mine looks like. So I found that when you're at a conference or a networking event, you meet so many people and you may talk to literally hundreds of people. And when you get a business card like this one, you might look at it a week or a month out and think like, was I supposed to do something with this? I don't even remember what I talked to that person for. So I recommend, and this might be controversial, but I recommend putting your picture on it like I did. That way you immediately remember that person, and that can help bring back the conversation that you had with them. I also have my name, what I do, executive director, and my contact information, my email address. I've seen some people put in their phone number, and that's totally fine. It's absolutely up to you. I don't, because I don't need people calling me. They can just email me. And then in the back, I have my LinkedIn profile. If you don't have one already, get with it. You are playing yourself if you don't have a LinkedIn profile. And then I have a little bit about us being a nonprofit. So major key, I built this on Canva, which is free to use. It took me, I did it one evening, and then I order it through Canva too. So highly recommend. If not, you can use Staples, which I think it's like $20 for 250 cards. You will have those for at least a year. And the other thing that I recommend is when you're building your card, try to use some sort of color that is a light tone. I know in the front I have black, but in the back it's more of a lilac. And that's because when I get a business card, like let's say this one, as I'm meeting the person, I will make sure I have a pen with me and I'll write down a few things. So let's say Nicholas, so I'll write down whatever it is that we talked about, whatever we decided was the value that we could provide each other. See, somebody wrote a message. Oh, okay. So I would write down, for example, wants to start a SEDS chapter, connect with X. That way, when I reach out to them, in the upcoming days, I know exactly what we talked about, and I don't just like throw out the window that whole conversation. So by keeping a light color on your card, you also give individuals the ability to do that and encourage it. When I get a card, I usually say like, oh, I'm gonna write on your card so I just absolutely don't forget. And sometimes that person will be like, oh, that's such a great idea. For whatever reason, people don't do this that often, and I don't know how they keep it all in their head. But I find that it's helped me tremendously. And the other thing I will add here is, once you get that card and you've developed that connection, reach out to them soon. These people, especially professionals, can be going to 5, 10, 15 different conferences, getting thousands of business cards. So the earlier you can continue that conversation wherever it ended, the better. I strive for reaching out to them while the conference is still happening. Even if they don't respond right away, when they do respond, I've often gotten compliments on like, wow, you're so on top of it. which is a good way to impress somebody, to show them that you're actively very organized and that you have a lot of motivation to take that initiative. And then the other thing I'll add here is, building your network. So one of the questions I had in the earlier slide was, what is your goal for coming to this summit? So my goal was to connect with the young generation and to tell them about things that I had to learn on my own that I wish somebody had told me. And hopefully I can connect with some of you and see later down the line if any of you actually use this and if it helped you. That would mean a lot to me. So now I'll volley it over to you. Would any of you like to share one goal out of coming to this summit and maybe how you can measure whether you actually accomplished it?
One of my goals is figuring out any new trends. So if I learned like maybe at least 5 new trends in space education, then that's a metric for accomplishing my goal. And I'm hoping to meet new people as well. I already kind of accomplished that because people are adding me on LinkedIn. So yeah.
Nice, nice. Let me see if anybody put anything on the chat. Oh, Melissa's an aspiring astrobiologist. Oh, that is awesome. Okay, Melissa, that is so cool. So, Melissa, do you have any goals out of coming to the summit? Is it simply to connect with individuals? Is there somebody specific that you're really looking forward to their talk? I'll give you a minute or so to type up your answer. And while you're working on that, I hope I'm not butchering your name, but Uzair, did you want to add any goals of yours on the chat as well?
Hello. Hello.
We're getting a lot of background noise.
Yes, I'm sorry. Outside right now. I cannot typing fastly. That's why I want to turn on my microphone, but I think my voice is that. Can you hear me right now? Little bit.
Okay. Okay, Nydia said to learn new things, like tip of cards to connect. Okay, go on. Just curious what this session's about. Oh, this session is about how to connect with individuals at summits, conferences, networking events, how to get the most out of it. Yeah, yeah. So, in the example of Melissa, I believe she mentioned she's into astrobiology. So let's say she goes to a conference. You should really prepare ahead of the conference, look at who's going to be the speakers, what companies are going to be present, and that way you have a tally on your mind of who it is that you have to talk to. That way, when you're at the conference, you're not just kind of wandering around, looking at the schedule, deciding on the spot what panel to attend, and instead make an intentional effort to say, I'm at this conference to push my career forward or to learn more about X research, and I really want to meet this person. That way, when you meet that person, you can say, I'm at this conference because of you, or however you want to phrase that. Let's see, yeah, it is so important in the space industry. As many of you know, space industry, although it seems huge, is actually quite small. And just like other industries, many of the jobs are based more on referral. So if you are thinking, I want to work at Blue Origin, for example, and I want to be a project manager at Blue Origin, then what do you think will work better? Cold calling, or like sending your resume along with the thousands of resumes that they get whenever that application opens up, or 2-3 years ahead of time, starting to establish those connections at Blue Origin, or starting to meet with project managers in different companies. It doesn't have to be Blue Origin, but project managers in general, so that you can learn what skills are most important, and now you'll have 2 to 3 years to develop them. At the same time, you're making these connections at Blue Origin. So by the time the application opens up and you submit your resume is going to be pushed up, because you're going to have so many people you can use as references within the company, and you will be developing those skills years in advance of exactly what they're looking for. So, just think about that. Okay. That is, oh, wait, one last thing. So when you write out the email or the LinkedIn message, however it is that you're connecting with these individuals, keep it relatively short. So you want to say, I'm so and so, we met at this and this place, and you will remember because you wrote it on the business card, or you'll just remember because of notes. We talked about X, and then you put in your ask. So I would really like to learn more about the research that you're doing at the University of Chicago. Do you have, and then establish a time, a date, and an agenda. Do you have 30 minutes over the next 2 weeks to talk about these 3 things? That's it. In my experience, I've had advice just say, like, do you have time to meet in the following week? People will be like, well, how much time? And some of these individuals, they're so restricted in their schedule. So giving them that information up front is easier for you, because it's going to avoid all that back and forth emailing. And it's easy to build a template, but as I said, establish how you have that connection, the value that you talked about, and then your ask. Can we meet for X and Y? Oh, a molecular biologist. Sorry, I'm reading the messages. I don't know if you guys can tell whenever I open up the messages on my computer, but astrobiologists join every meeting to make my friends clear pathway development, like to study master's program about astrobiology and origins of life. Wow, that is so cool. Yeah, Space Generation Advisory Council, Yara just mentioned it. Highly recommend that, especially if you're not in the United States. SGAC, what they're known as, is a huge network. It's for students and young professionals, and they host so many events. They have a lot of different ways to get involved, like policy, mostly it's policy, but they have a lot of different committees. Highly recommend you reach out to them, and becoming a member is entirely free. I think there's one more message. Yeah. Okay. I will stop there before we go to the final. See how we're doing on time. Okay, we have a few more minutes. So, any questions so far? Okay.
Maybe I'll ask a question. Are there any mistakes that you made during your early networkings? And if so,
Oh my
how did you overcome them, or how did you learn from those?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the very first conference I went to, I didn't have business cards. I didn't prepare. I didn't even see who was going there. And then I try to speak to as many people as possible. So why are those three mistakes? Well, for the business card aspect, as I mentioned, people generally ask, like, can I have your business card? And then you'd say, like, no, I don't have one. And I got around it by making the background of my phone my LinkedIn QR code. But it just, it made me feel like I wasn't prepared. So, you know, you can have a virtual business card as well, but that was just really important for me moving forward. The second one I mentioned was I had was completely unprepared. So I was just going to panels aimlessly, and I would sometimes end up in a really good one with speakers that I was like, oh, I didn't know they were gonna be here. And like that was the entire conference, just me being like, oh wow, they're here, that's so cool, but no real direction. Although I got a lot out of that conference, I could have gotten a lot more by having a plan and knowing that, okay, as long as I talk to these two people today, then the rest of the day I can just wander, do my own thing. But that first time I was worried, should I be going to that panel because I'm here? I don't know who's talking there. So definitely look at speakers, companies, especially if you're trying to get a job with one of those companies, starting to establish those relationships. And then the last one I said was talking to too many people. I know like that might be counterintuitive, that you're probably wondering like, what? Isn't that good? But that, for me, the name of the game was how many business cards can I collect? I would come home every day after the conference with just stacks. And out of, let's say that I came out of that conference with 200 business cards. Of those 200 business cards, 2 or 3 actually became something. But that meant that that was 200 emails that I had to write, follow up with, because I just thought I need to talk to as many people as possible, even if we have absolutely nothing in common. I just need to get more cards because, you know, for me, back then I was the chair of SEDS, being the chair of SEDS, I thought it was that was just how you did it. So moving on to the following conference, I prepared for it. I knew like no matter what, I need to connect to these 3-4 people, and I got way less business cards, but let's say that I got, I don't know, 50 the next conference. Of those 50, 10 or 15 really became very important connections. So sponsors or partners for my nonprofit, which is huge. I was having to work less during the conference, being able to enjoy it. And I was like very goal oriented, which freed up a lot of time to just enjoy my time. So I highly recommend you do that. Oh, and one last thing, which is the final part here, is I had no idea how to talk about myself. So I would be like, oh, do you know SEDS? We're this like little nonprofit. We have students and I'm the chair, but there is just no intention in how I was talking about SEDS. And what I learned is, you know, what is our mission? What are the key vocabulary to use? Why am I here? So now when I talk about SEDS, I don't say like, oh, do you know SEDS? Oh, that's amazing that you do. Nobody knows us. Usually I say, you don't know SEDS. I'm so sorry you don't know that, because SEDS is awesome. It's changed the life of thousands of students. We've been around since the 80s. We're in over 100 chapters, things like that, which immediately changed the tone of the conversation to make me less passive and more proactive. So moving on to that final station is how to actually talk about yourself, developing that elevator pitch. Briefly before these, I mentioned I give you a few minutes to figure out what your values are. I'll go first. a good value of mine is one, being okay with being vulnerable. Two, being very good at understanding what are my team's superpowers. And three, being an active listener. So, oh, wait, no. I have one. Fourth one, which I think is very important, is I love puzzles. I love, like jigsaw puzzles. I love Sudoku. I love, like, anything like that. I can spend hours doing it and not get tired. So, a way that I would introduce myself and have that elevator pitch. So by elevator pitch, I mean something a bit broader, is talking about those skills that carry on anywhere. So if somebody asks me, tell me about yourself, I could say, well, instead of saying I am the executive director, blah, 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 I can say, at my core, I'm a puzzle solver. I love putting different pieces together and seeing what I can create. I love crossword puzzles and Sudoku, and I love looking at data that is so disorganized and putting it together in a way that tells a story. Now I just said something that I can take to any industry, right? Or that somebody might say, like, I love puzzles too. Or I mentioned data. So I took it from a very, like, Sudoku crossword puzzle to a much higher level, showing that this is who I am across many different dimensions. Okay, I see that there's so many messages. So let's see. Your network
No,
is your network.
yeah,
Okay.
there's just us to take a group picture when we are done with the talk, which we definitely can do. And I'm also curious if you can talk about the psychological aspects. Some people may get overwhelmed with networking. Some people may get anxious. Do you have any suggestions for those people?
Yeah. Let me think about that one. So something that I keep going back to this is it helped me a lot is planning who I'm gonna meet, but also, so before I go to a conference, I will write down, here are the 10 people I have to talk to no matter what. Here are the panels I have to go to no matter what. But I also put down 3 goals. So generally like most 2 of the goals are related to SEDS. So like find a partner for X or find a speaker for Y. But that last goal should be something related to me. So Melissa mentioned she wants to learn more about astrobiology. That could be learning more about that. It's almost a great way to check in with, am I here just for, this career or this job, or am I also here for myself because I'm actually interested in X or Y. I would say that for me, I love finance, I love economics, that's my background. So even if there's no reason for me to go to those panels, I go to those panels because I find them interesting. But I'm also generally, when I go to conferences, it's not just me. I'm bringing with me 10 or 15 students through scholarships that we offer. And coming back to that of like, we're all there to have a good time, to go through this experience together is extremely, extremely helpful, especially when, as you said, you can get really bogged down with like, oh, I've talked to this person and this person, I didn't catch them. it's good to have some sort of almost tribe you can go back to where you can just hang out, probably make a meme out of some panelists at some panel you were all at. Just being able to go back to those roots is very, very helpful. And let me think of one other. For me, also, I found that over time, meditating at the beginning of the day, especially at conferences, has helped me out a lot. I know that for some folks, their brain is just, it just won't stop thinking. And at conferences, that can take on an even higher level. You're exposed to so much, and it seems like everybody else around you is always on the go, on a conference call or running somewhere. So it can be easy to let yourself, let your emotions identify with that as well. And it's good to start the day in a way that grounds you. So that's what I recommend. Okay, I don't know how much time we have. Okay, we have a few more minutes. So happy to workshop with you guys what that pitch could be for you if you're interested in working on that now. If not, I can certainly put my email address on the chat and we can talk offline private about this. So I'll go ahead and do that now, but we can also just practice generic ones. And
speaking of
let's-
networking, maybe we can at least drop in some contact information, including LinkedIn or social media, so people can connect and stay in touch.
yeah, that's such a good idea, Martina. Thanks for bringing that up. So yeah, absolutely. Let's see if I
And
can.
maybe also like say, maybe you can also like remind us like what you do or what your passion is.
Yeah, of course, of course. So I'm the executive director for students for the exploration and development of space. I'm going to I think there's one more slide here. Let's see. Oh, okay. I guess that, I don't know what happened to that slide. So I'll stop sharing since we're now just chatting. But I'm the executive director. We have at the student level where that cool space club at your university or your high school where you built your first rocket, your first cube satellite, where you did your first space medicine research. Truly the work that's done by our chapters is driven by their passions, and there's just so many flavors when it comes to what you can do in space. We have about 10,000 different members in the United States, and we're all across the globe. And we have a student conference that we run once a year called Space Vision. This year it's going to be at the University of Denver in Denver, Colorado from October 3rd to the 4th. I'll plug in the name of that here. I'll also briefly talk about my background. So I have a bachelor's in economics and industrial engineering and a master's in industrial engineering. I run SEDS at night and I work as a financial analyst during the day. But my goal is to be the person who sets the prices for tickets to space once they are low enough that the general populace can afford them. I want to be the one that sets that price.
That's the
Okay.
economist in you speaking.
Yeah. So before this, I worked at Universal Orlando Resort, which is a theme park in Orlando, and that's what I did there. I would set the price for tickets, and there was so much data that went to it. It was a team of 3. But I loved it so much, and I thought one day this is gonna happen in space. Because the prices change every day depending on where you came from. Like there was so much that went into it. So yeah, it's very exciting. So please feel free to connect with me. I do, I guess. I think I would prefer to do financial models than financial projections. But I'm still a baby at it. I would say that generally when it comes to that, I would rely a lot on Python, but I more or less use Python just for data analysis than for financial modeling. Okay. Let me see if I can find my LinkedIn.
I also have a question actually about online networking, because when I talked about like introduction, it was not necessarily like just for you. Of course, you're a speaker, and we were able to read about you up front. But when people are connecting, let's say this is a virtual event, right? So we are trying to connect with each other. So we don't need to just drop in like just an email or just a LinkedIn or X, right? We can say things like, "Hi, I'm Martina. I'm passionate about space medicine commercialization, and here are my profiles." Right? This way, it's almost like simulating what you are doing with the business cards, writing down like who is doing what, right? Or do you have any other
Yeah.
like suggestions? Like this is how I do it, but is there any online networking tips and tricks that you have been using?
Hmm. I would say that what you mentioned already is excellent. Putting that in your introduction is great. And I think, we kind of did that a little bit with what Melissa typed down. So that's a good example of that, where you talked about who you are, what your background is, what you're interested in, and then also here's how you can connect with me. I would also say that a lot of the online networking that has helped me the most has been purely done through LinkedIn. It's been me just thinking, I want to meet somebody who does this in space. Let me just type that into LinkedIn and see if somebody has that job title. And then if I find somebody who it's happened in the past, I will send them a message and say, hey, I'm so and so. I am so interested about your career path. Can I learn a little bit more about you? 9 times out of 10, they say yes, because again, I'm not trying to sell them anything. I'm truly just curious, especially if you're a student, it's very easy because people understand and with that of being a student and just being curious about the world. So truly using LinkedIn to your advantage, I feel like it can be so scary to send something to somebody like that you don't know. But the opposite of that would be waiting to meet them at an event like this one or at a conference, which that might actually never happen. So being proactive, I think helps. And keeping it short. Again, they said, like, whenever you send out that email or that LinkedIn message, be very explicit about what it is that you want, but keep it to like 2 or 3 sentences. It should not be 2 paragraphs unless there's some exception. So yeah, hope that answers your question. I don't have
Yeah,
that many
yeah.
tips.
And
On
you
networking.
also are demonstrating that you looked at the person's profile, right? That it's not like some generic message that you are sending to hundreds of people, but you make it very obvious that you are reaching out to this person because you looked like something particular about their career path, and there is something else you are trying to learn more, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll also add one last thing that I generally type in there. I promise I'm not looking for a job because sometimes people think like, oh, they're just trying to connect with me to ask me to push their resume. But just being explicit that you're just truly curious about what they do and you can't imagine like how they get their work done and you just want to know what kind of skills and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
what if people are looking for a job?
I think then you maybe don't write that on like, I promise I'm not gonna ask for a job, but you should definitely feel out the conversation. It shouldn't be something where once you meet with them or like set up a 30-minute conversation, you don't want to just try to sell yourself immediately. If you approach them because you want to learn about what they do, then learn about what they do. And then at the end, share about what your goals are. Well, I actually would love to work at your company. And if, now that you know my skill sets, if you ever across a job that you think might suit me or that I could add a lot of value to, I would really appreciate it if you connect me with it. Or whatever, or maybe you can ask them to be your mentor if you got that connection really well. And now you've established something that they will absolutely recommend you for a job because you're their mentee, right? I would say that if you're specifically looking for a job, then you're probably better off reaching out to recruiters and establishing that connection than just reaching out to like an engineer or so on.
Great tips. Is there anything else we should have asked and did not ask?
Group picture. The last summit we had group picture.
Oh
for
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's do
Yeah,
a group
please.
picture.
Whoever wants to turn their cameras
Media.
is okay. I have my settings that I can't see non-video participants. Do we? Yeah. I will take one. You guys can take one.
I took one. I'll also put it in the chat.
Oh,
I
okay.
think I can stop the recording.
Oh, can you put your camera one more time? I didn't smile. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you all so much.
You. And thank you so much, Sarah, from sharing your passion for aerospace and how it applies to young professionals, how young professionals and any professionals should be networking online and offline when it comes to the body language, when it comes to verbal, non-verbal, psychological, everything around.
Yes, of course. Thank you so much. And thank you for being a moderator. So helpful.
My pleasure.